Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Callie's Kingdom. So today I'm going to do my June wrap up where I tell you all about the books I read in June. So this month, since school was over for me, I had a lot more time to read books. So I ended up reading, I think 10 total. Wait, let me check. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 10, and I'm also in the middle of another one. So let's get into it. Okay. So the first book I read this month was called Cytonic. It was the third book in the Skyward series, and it was amazing. I love this series so much. This book literally made me cry at the end. If you read it, you probably know why, and it was just so much fun. Also, I loved getting to talk about these series with my other friend who loves Brandon Sanderson, and he was just so happy that someone else had read some Brandon Sanderson books, or as we called it, Branderson Sanderson. That's literally... Anyway, so yeah, this was really good. Out of all the three books that I read so far in this trilogy, this is probably my least favorite. So originally I rated it 5 stars, but it'd probably be more like 4.75 since the pacing was a bit off, where I feel like it could have been condensed and like added like more to the story, maybe combined books 3 and 4. I haven't read book 4 yet because it's not out until November. But yeah, so first book of the month, 4.75 stars, but I'll round up to 5 stars for purposes like that. So the next book of the month was a bit disappointing to me. It was my first like adult thriller, and it was called The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I ended up rating this 3 stars because none of the characters were likable. It kind of like jumped back and forth between different POVs and everything, and it kind of stuck with the main character. So basically the main character, she goes to her brother's apartment in Paris to stay with him, but he's like not answering the phone and she doesn't know where he is, and it's kind of like alluded to at the beginning that he's dead. So basically it follows all the other tenants in the apartments, and it sounded really interesting, but it all kind of just fell flat for me, and I wasn't rooting for any of the characters. The main character was not a good person. And yeah, so it was an okay book. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. So 3 stars. And then the next book of the month I do not have. It was called This Is Not the Jess Show. Actually, the next couple books are young adult thrillers because I was in like a whole thriller phase. Especially since this one disappointed me, I needed to find some good ones. And some of these did not disappoint. The Jess Show was not very much of a thriller though. It wasn't really what I was looking for. I think at first I gave it 4 stars, and then I was like, it's not really a thriller. It wasn't really for me. So I bumped it down, and I think I'd land on 3.5. It wasn't a bad story by any means. It was just a little bit young for me. It like didn't read like young adult. It read a little bit more like middle grade. So basically it was about this girl named Jess, and things start going weird. Like she starts to realize that her surroundings are not what they seem. She lives in like 1998 or something, but she sees someone have like an Apple phone, which has not been created yet, and people randomly like stop talking when she comes in the room and are acting weird around her, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. But the secret of what's going on was revealed very easily, like maybe halfway through the book, and she didn't even have to try to figure it out. She just kind of confronted someone and asked, and he was like, well, I have no choice but to tell you, and just kind of told her everything. So that was not my favorite, but it was a very easy read, and it was an enjoyable story. And I feel like if I was in middle school, I definitely would have liked it a lot more. So a lot of people who are maybe in middle school in 9th or 10th grade, something like that, they'd probably really enjoy it. Or if you're looking for something like that. Or if you like the 90s or the 80s or something. It wasn't 80s, it was 90s. But anyway, the next book was so good. Exactly what I was looking for in a young adult thriller. We have Five Survive by Holly Jackson. So I read Holly Jackson's other books, the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. They're somewhere behind me, and I absolutely love them, except for the third book. I loved the first book, gave it 5 stars. Gave it 5 stars. The second book, I gave 4.5 stars. And the third book, I think I gave 3, but I might bump it down a little bit to like 2.75 or something. But Anyway, this was about a group of 6 people who were going on a senior trip over their spring break or something. So they got an RV and they start going, and then all of a sudden, one of their wheels like pops and deflates. So they go out to inspect it, and then suddenly all 4 of their wheels are shot, and they realize there's like a sniper in the trees shooting at them. And one of them has a secret, although a lot of them have secrets, but the sniper is looking for one person's secret, and if he doesn't get it by morning, then they'll all die. So it's kind of like high stakes like that. The action, it went hour by hour. It was like 11 p.m., 12 p.m., and everyone had secrets. It was just so good. There's this character in here that I hated so much, but he was meant to be like hated. But yeah, I loved it, and then I gave it to my mom to read it, and she loved it, and then I gave it to my sister to read it, and she loved it. So I think that you guys might love it if you like young adult thrillers. It was very much high stakes. It was kind of scary, but it wasn't like too scary because I can't deal with horror, but I like thrillers. So the next book I don't have with me because I returned it to the library, but it was called All Your Twisted Secrets. Yet another young adult thriller. This one I rated 4 stars. It was really, really good up until the end, where the ending was kind of unbelievable for me, and it didn't seem like there were enough clues that it led up to that point. But other than that, it was very good. If it had a better ending, it might have been 5 stars. Or 4.5 or something like that. But basically, again, 6 kids. Kind of like there's 6 in here. But they were invited to the scholarship dinner, and all of a sudden the doors lock, and they realize underneath the platter is a bomb and a vial of poison, and there's a note that says, by the end of the hour, you have to choose someone to inject the poison into, and that person will die, or the bomb will go off, and all of you will die. So it's a little bit similar to this, but it was very different in execution. And I really enjoyed it, and it kind of went past present, so it kind of led up to like how these students' lives intertwine, because they all were like different. There was like the music girl, the like preppy girl, or the preppy boy, the popular girl, the athlete, blah blah blah, all those, and all their lives kind of intertwined. So it was very high stakes. Again, they have to choose someone. They're trying to get out of here, blah, blah, blah. It was pretty good. I'd recommend it, even though the ending was not the best. But I feel like if she put in a little bit more clues sprinkled throughout, the ending could have worked. But for me, it didn't. But anyway, moving on, the next book I read was The Project. I think I rated that 4 stars too, but I'm not sure if I might move it down to 3.75 or keep it at 4, because it was pretty good, but the beginning was kind of like convoluted, and it just wasn't as good as some of the other books I read. But basically it's about 2 sisters, and the one sister, what was her name? I remember the other, B, I think her name was B. We're just going to go with that, even if I'm wrong. The one sister, B, she ends up being involved in, like, a cult, basically. And the other sister, Lo, is, like, a reporter. So she's trying to get into the cult, trying to, like, get the scoop on it, trying to figure it out and get her sister back. So it was pretty good. It was kind of, like, different timelines. And at first, it didn't make sense when which sister was telling what, because they didn't put that right under the chapter titles, which would have been very helpful. But after you get past the convolutedness and you get into the story, it's a pretty good story. But it wasn't as good as some of the other books I read. It didn't, like, blow me away or anything. And I feel like it could have been stronger in a lot of places. But anyway, the next book I read was The Arrival of Someday, which it has such a beautiful cover. I actually decided to read 2 books for this one video I was making, but then I had a senior trip, then I had a Maryland trip with my family, and then my voice was gone, so I didn't really get a chance to finish it. Basically, I got the prettiest cover and the least favorite cover on my physical TBR, decided to read them and see what I thought of them. The thing was, I rated these both 2.5 stars. I didn't really like either of them. I might put some down to 2. I might put them both down to 2. I don't know. I do a thing where, like, I rate books and I rate them slightly higher than I end up rating them in the end, except if they're, like, strong 5 or strong 4.5 or strong, like, 4 stars. But others, I guess I feel too bad, and then later I'm like, no, it was less than that. So I'm not kind of sure about what these ratings exactly will be, but they were both bad. Bad in different ways, in my opinion. The Arrival of Someday, it was just, there were some scenes that were so unbelievable. I don't know if I read this one scene on the video clips, but there was like, I guess, let me start over. This book, there's a girl who, I think she needs not a kidney, what was it? Let's see. A liver. She needs a new liver. So, and she's kind of like upset about that. She doesn't want to be known as Dying Girl. She wants to be known for who she is. And the book was trying to get a message across. A very good message about like the message of like art and beauty and like different things. Like they talk about mandalas and how people like they put all the work into creating the mandalas, but instead of preserving it, they kind of wipe it away and start again and do that. Or creating sand sculptures on the beach, and then when it like gets wiped away, like what kind of how that relates to her life and how she might die young and everything, which is a beautiful message. And I feel like the book was trying to say something, but it wasn't going about it very well, and the main character was just so annoying. She was also so juvenile as well, I feel like. And the book was just written in ways that made you kind of cringe and be like, what? So she's like a roller derby girl, which is pretty cool, and I think that's cool. But her like roller derby name is like Voldemort, first of all, like Voldemort, but like Voldemort, and everyone's like, yeah, Voldemort, and she just, I don't know. There's just so many parts about it. Like, her friend got dress coded because of her shorts, and then they made shirts that's like, the dress code needs to be recoded, and then it's like, we burst into the hallways, and everyone started cheering. They're like, you go, girl, blah, 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 and we twirled and sashayed. It literally was using those words, and it was not good. But I love the cover. It is so beautiful, and I might keep it just because of the cover. This book was trying to be a thriller, I think, but it just wasn't very good. It was also very dated. Like, you could tell this was written, like, 2010. When was it written? Maybe earlier, like, 2008, something like that. Let's see. 2012, yeah. So around that time, and there's these two twin sisters who look exactly alike, and one goes missing, and the other one's starting to, like, feel the pain of her sister and like what she's going through and getting like a black eye, and it kind of went through that, but it just wasn't good. The pieces weren't really put together, and then you realize the one twin that went missing wasn't the twin you thought. The twins swapped places because they do that sometimes just to do it, and no one realizes and no one knows, and it's just like the ending was kind of anticlimactic. They did another thing where like you don't know which twin is which at the end because something happens to one of the twins, and it's like, oh my gosh, it was really the other twin. It just wasn't good. I'll probably just get rid of this book, maybe donate it to a little library, because I don't like the cover, and if I don't like the cover and I don't like the story, what's the point of keeping it? This will at least look pretty on my bookshelf. Maybe I shouldn't keep it because of that. I don't know, but I like the cover. And I got both of these for cheap. I got them both at my library. This one for $1, this one for like $3. But anyway, onto a book that I can say better things about. Hotel Magnifique. This is 4 stars. I rated it 4 stars, and I'm keeping it 4 stars because it was a good story. It reminds me a lot of Caraval, but in a very different way. So if you like similar vibes, not a very different way, but if you like similar vibes to Caraval and a similar storyline but different, I recommend Hotel Magnifique. So there's a girl named Janie and then her sister Zoza, and they are barely scraping by. They don't have much. Their mom died, so Janie is like working to help support her sister, and her sister loves to sing. But every 10 years or so, this hotel randomly appears in this alleyway, and the tickets there are coveted because it's the only place where magic is safe. People don't remember what goes on inside there, but they just remember the happiness and joy they felt, and everyone wants to get a ticket. And these girls, they're too poor to even get in if they get a ticket, so they decide to do the next thing. Get a job there. So Zoza gets chosen as a singer, but Janie does not. But somehow she works her way in there because there's this guy, what's his name? I want to say, I forget his name. Okay. Bell, because he was like the bellhop. Sometimes if you read a bunch of books in a month, it's hard to remember names. But anyway, it was a good book still. So they start to realize that things aren't as it seems, and that the hotel is kind of darker than they thought, and there's secrets, and Janie and Zoza are kind of split apart from each other, and Janie's just trying to figure out what's going on with this hotel. Who can she trust? Can she even trust this guy, Belle? Who knows? There's also a bit of a romance between her and Belle, which is fine. It was good. It wasn't like I was rooting for them, but it wasn't like I was not rooting for them. I was just like, oh yeah, there's the love interest, stereotypical love interest in a fantasy young adult book. But it was pretty good. I liked the ending. I thought it was a good way to end things and wrap things up. I liked figuring out what was going on inside the hotel. It was a bit of like mysterious in that way. But as you can see now, it kind of reminds you a little bit of Caraval. Two sisters, magical, insert blank here, hotel/carnival. There's a guy who takes them in there, and then there's this magical guy who's in charge of the whole thing, who's like, and there's dark secrets to it. So if you liked Caraval, I think you'd like this. If you didn't like Caraval, I don't think you'd like this. But I think they're different enough that it's not like copy and paste. But it definitely seems like inspiration was drawn. But anyway, that was Hotel Magnifique. The next and last book that I finished was Family of Liars, and this is the prequel to We Were Liars, which I read a couple months before, which I think I rated 4.5 stars. And I think I will rate this 4 stars. It's basically about the main girl in the other books, Aunt. It follows her, Carrie, and her, like, childhood and everything that led up to different things. So I was not expecting to follow Carrie, but I liked following her and seeing the island again, seeing her sisters, how she interacted. I don't think it was written similar to We Were Liars, but it wasn't written quite as, like, unreliable narrator-esque. She was a little bit of an unreliable narrator, but there wasn't, like, that big of a twist at the end. There was a little bit of a twist, but it wasn't as big as We Were Liars. I'm trying not to give anything away. So I thought it was a good book. It wasn't as good as We Were Liars, but it was still an enjoyable book of 4 stars. So those were all the books I completed this month, but I also got in the middle of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Right now I am at page 286, but I'm actually filming this on the 4th of July, so I forget quite where I was at the beginning. But this book is pretty good so far. I'll talk more about this in my wrap-up of July. Yeah, July. Wow, we're already in July. Anyway, it was very slow at the beginning. This is a pretty popular book. It was pretty popular like maybe 2 or 3 years back on BookTube, maybe like 2, but I didn't read it until now. But I'm enjoying it a lot, especially now that I got past the first 100 pages. The first 100 pages are very slow. The second 100 pages things start to pick up. Around page 200 there's a big like twist that I think makes things even more enjoyable. It makes me want to read the book even more. I also love the message they're saying in this book. I don't want to say too much, but if you know what this book is about, or if you don't, it's about a girl named Addie, and she was born in like 1690 something, and she wants to get away from like an arranged marriage, so she makes a deal with this guy who pretty much is like the devil, that she'll live forever, but she doesn't realize the consequences of this freedom and her living forever is that whenever she walks out of a room, everyone forgets her. So then the whole thing about this book is finally this one guy, Henry, who she meets at a bookshop, remembers her. But that doesn't take place until page 200. It's a lot of build-up and everything until then, which seems a bit necessary. I wish they could have cut that down a little bit so far, but it's really good. And I really like what they're trying to say, although that she can't leave a mark herself. She can't draw, she can't, like, write, she can't tell her story, she can't be in photos, no one can remember her. But she can influence ideas of other people, and she still can leave a mark that way, which I think is really cool commentary on the world. So yeah, I read 10 books this month. My average star rating of everything, although it might like shift a little bit since I shifted a few things, was 3.75. My favorite of the month was 5 Survive, and my least favorite was The Arrival of Someday and Beautiful Lies. And the number read for my summer TBR, I think I filmed another video about that. I might have. I'll have to see. But I read 7 out of the 18 for my summer TBR, so yeah, thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for another video coming soon about my July TBR, as well as maybe a little mini book haul, because I picked up a few books this month. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!